You're listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is May 13th, 2024, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Monday?
Spencer, hello. I am doing well because it is MOP Remix week. So that is consuming my thoughts. But it's funny because like the live game is so vibrant. There's so much stuff going on and I'm playing it so much and it feels so good this season. And we have Alpha on the horizon, and obviously the stuff we're seeing from War Within is very exciting, but I'm very eager to dive into MOP Remix and see what it's all about and see how that loop really feels of like, okay, here's this character I'm invested in for the next 4.5 months at least. How does this all work? And so, yeah, that happens Thursday afternoon, my time. And I will be looking forward to that extremely. But I mean, I'm having a great time with season 4 as well. I'm starting to get to the point now where, settling in a bit in terms of the overall difficulty curve. I'm not all the way like geared out yet, but I'm about halfway up. And so, okay, I don't have to do 30 keys because I'm not building keys up from lower ones, and I'm not, whiffing as many timers in that, 8+ range or whatever. So I'm getting aspect crest capped. We're killing mythic bosses. So that's an extra, 10 per boss. That helps with all that. And it's like, the first couple weeks, I mean, I probably did 50 keys or give or take between the first 2 resets. I did considerably fewer this past week, but I mean, I think dungeons feel great. I'm just having a great time with the content. And the cool thing is you have relatively clear paths to the stuff that you want in this season. So it feels like your time investment really pays off because like, okay, if I do this, and that, then I'm going to get this out the other end. And I don't have to do this kind of game where it's like, well, do I use this socket on this item, or like, do I use these crests on this, or what do I do? Because, that you're going to get anything that you want off of the raid vendors, which then go all the way up to, 528. And if you put the work in on upgrading them, and I think it's a great system. I don't know if it's appropriate for all of the time necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't maybe complain if it was all the time, but I think it kind of short circuits what the developers want us to be doing. But for this kind of situation where we're sort of in this holding pattern until new expansion's ready, I think it's perfect. I mean, I really can't say enough about how much fun I've been having with Awakened raids and the Keystones and all that.
Yeah, and it's a mixed opinion out there, right? Because I definitely have friends who are still raiding who are like, season 4, not really my jam. It's not something that's really speaking to me when it comes to raiding specifically. They wanted the affixes in the raids. They wanted the raids to be something a little more spicy. And I guess for me, the season 4 just is like a consolation season. It's like, hey, you know what, guys, we didn't want to leave you in the same content for 6 months, so here's something. And I'm personally pleased that they're choosing not to do that to players, because actually we have Cataclysm Classic coming out later this month, and it reminded me of Cataclysm, the tail end of Cataclysm, where we just sort of sat in the same game state for like 11 months or something. It was 14 months or something ridiculous.
Dragon Soul. It was about 10, 11 months, because it was it was about 10. It was early December to like late September from Cata into MOP. And I mean, in my opinion, Dragon Soul was the worst raid we ever had. And so, yeah, almost a year of nothing but Dragon Soul. Oof, yeah, that hurt.
It was rough, right? And so I'm glad they're doing something, and I'm glad season 4 is what it is, because I'm happier with what season 4 is overall than getting like a one boss raid, or getting that you sit in for 5 months, or just not getting anything at all. I'm being like, hey guys, you know what? We're full steam ahead in the next project. We're not going to put in the, I don't know. It'd be interesting to ask a dev how long it takes them to develop a season 4, because a lot of the assets are already there. The raids need to be scaled, and the tier sets had to be scaled, and there had to be class tuning that happened with that. But if that's like a couple of months of work, I'm happy that they put a couple of months of work into a season 4 rather than leaving us in the state of the same game for 6 months. So that to me works out well. And it probably doesn't require the entire team doing it, because you already know that Art and everyone else has already moved on. They're probably working on Midnight at the moment. So it's one of those, I guess for me, one of those situations where I'm just happy they gave us something when it comes to Season 4 stuff. And I do feel like they do really good storytelling inside of Season 4s, because they often highlight one or two stories they really want to tell that haven't been told yet that expansion, or they want to tell before the next one, and choose to put those in. And they're great to explore. Did you get to check out the new stuff, Jason? Or
I did, yeah. I think it was Wednesday, because Tuesday, like, maintenance was super long, and then obviously, like, it's a reset day. We got stuff to check off the list, and I was already playing really late. So Wednesday, I think I just went through and did all the new story questing, which, I think it came off really well. The main campaign is obviously the whole sort of Xalatath reveal, the Harbinger setup and all that. And so, bringing in Khadgar and Illyria and going to Telegra's Rift, like the Void Elf starting area / home base, was really cool. Going back to that space and sort of getting into that. I think it wasn't like some groundbreaking thing, but it sets up what's coming pretty well. It starts setting up, the villain of the piece for War Within and beyond, I assume. And so that was cool. And you get some nice transmogs for doing it. You get Illyria's bow, and you get some void touched looking weapons and stuff. So that was cool. The one about Visage Day was really funny. I think they did some great stuff there with sort of just the nature of identity. Like, what does identity mean to anybody? And it could mean all these different things. And the way that you sort of revisited some of these characters from earlier in the Dragonflight questing was really cool. Of course, if you didn't do all that questing, then you may not be able to do that quest, which seems like a problem. But
it's a problem. But I do want to highlight that moment that you talked about. I always love, like, a patch or two later, them being like, all right, so this is what's been going on in this person's life since you left them ages ago. I think that's always a nice touch when they're able to do those
or like,
things.
Where did you leave them off? Like how did whatever experiences that your character had with them change them or their situation or whatever. That's really cool. So I like that, and it has sort of this humorous twist ending that I thought was really cool. Plus, you get the personal tabard that you can then set up and design however you want, which is a really cool feature to add after all these years. The Night Elf quest line in Belemeth, I wish they had put in a breadcrumb for it or something. I think a lot of players are maybe going to miss this in this window here where it's sort of the thing to do, because nothing directs you there. And even if you look at the map, there's not like an exclamation point on Malfurion where you pick up the quest. But that story was just incredibly well done. I think it closed a loop from earlier in the expansion that it was kind of funny, because there were some like Wowhead comments and stuff out there about that quest chain that were like, oh, this is such a missed opportunity. Why didn't they close this loop? Why was this character doing what she was doing? And like, it was just waiting for this storyline in 10.2.7. And it was just incredibly well done. I feel like, it was weighty, and it felt a bit more resonant than some of the other WoW questing. It's something that I think is going to stick with me for a while, because it was just it was so powerful. Getting into the motivations of who these characters are, and like in this case, it was the Primalists. Like, why did the Primalists do what they did, and who are some of these people, and what do they do now? After Farak's defeat, and can they be reintegrated into society? Where do they belong on Azeroth at this point? So I thought that was a really cool story. This wasn't like earth-shattering stuff, and it's not going to power up your character, but I think it was a really nice way to close the book on some stuff in Dragonflight and just open that next chapter for War Within. So I had a great time doing it. And yeah, if you didn't do it, like, go to Belemeth and do that Night Elf questing if you can, because it was really good.
Yeah. I have not actually checked it out yet, so I'll have to go and check it out, because I do like seeing storylines wrapped up. So this has been the story expansion for me, because I haven't been reading as much, so I will want to see what happens with that. All right, as far as anything else that happened last week, Jason, you want to highlight as to what you got up to?
Oh man, I was super busy this past week. Normal. We ended up doing normal Yggdrasil, just blasting through it. I think it took about maybe not even an hour. Got everybody there voyaging Wilderling, which is a really cool mount. I love the Wilderlings from Shadowlands, and having a dynamic flight one right now is cool, and it's got a cool color scheme. So that was nice. And then we just kind of zipped right through Heroic Awakened to Yggdrasil. Obviously, the fights are pretty fresh in our minds, and Farak, I don't think, was one of the more complicated end bosses. So that was good. And we got 3 mythic bosses down. Like, we pulled it together enough to remember how to do Aegir is really the tricky one of the first 3. So that was really nice. I mean, it's getting getting access to some of that loot, getting those vault choices and everything like that. Getting 30 aspect crests for everybody. That's 2 item upgrades right there in the aspect track. Yeah, really, really good run. And then Sunday we ended up, yesterday was Mother's Day, and also I don't think a lot of people are really keen on doing stuff that's actively challenging, and Mythic Council that was like the hardest fight that we killed, and it takes a lot, so I don't think people were really interested in trying to prog it last night. So we ended up doing normal. I brought the monk out for a spin, and that was pretty fun. Just getting some pretty decent upgrades and having currency to upgrade stuff with. I have 3-piece on him now, so I just got to get a little bit more luck. But yeah, raid was super fun. For Keystones, it was actually like this combo this week was really not the greatest. It's just ghosts on ghosts. But, I was doing mostly stuff in the 10 range. I already actually have 6 of the 8 dungeons timed on +10 this season. Weirdly, I was like, I don't even need to do these because I don't need the teleports and who cares. But one thing I did figure out is you get that extra upgrade. You get 522s up from 519s if you do +10s compared to anything lower than +10s. And for me, a big part of Season 4 is just about the race to being done with aspect crests, so I don't have to worry about capping them and doing whatever. And so that's, 15 crests you're saving every time you choose a 522 over a 519. So that's like essentially the cap going up an extra 15 per week if you choose to do that. So, 10s are a lot harder than like 8s, which is the other thing you could do to get on the myth track. But right now I prefer the 10s. We're not having that much of a problem with them. We timed Neltharis on +10 this week, which was brutal, but it was doable. So if we could do that, I'm not really too afraid of anything out there in the +10 range. Once I'm done with aspect crest, then yeah, maybe we'll just do 8s for vault choices and whatever, if all we need is flight stones. We can confirm, everybody I'm sure knows by now, yes, they did actually push the 2 bullion quest from the Dungeon Weekly, which was awesome. You didn't get a box and the bullion, but that's okay. I think we're all okay with the bullion. So I got the Anvil Trinket from Aberys because I figured it's not going to be back around for like 2 more weeks, so I'm not going to see a drop. So let me get this and check that off the list, and that thing's been incredibly powerful, so that's really fun.
That is you bring up an interesting point with bullion, which is the rotation of dungeons, of raids, and not seeing that faded raid for a period of time means that we're now inside that situation where, awakened raid. My brain is still doing the same thing. It's the same thing. For that period of time means that, yeah, you can consider with your bullion, hey, you know what? I'm not going to see this again for a couple of weeks. I get some bullion every week. I'm able to spend some bullion now to get the thing that I want from the raid I'm not going to see for a couple of weeks. That's a smart way to go about it, for sure.
Yeah, it's maybe a little min-maxy. It's maybe a little too optimized minded or whatever, but like that's an item I definitely want for the season, and I'm not even going to have an opportunity to get it even this coming week. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me, especially considering some of the other stuff that I've gotten through drops or what have you. Like this week, for example, I'm still sitting on a bullion, right? This is the week for the 4th raid bullion. And the next thing I want to buy probably is one of the rings from Vault of the Incarnates, but it's Vault of the Incarnates this week. So maybe I get lucky with a drop. I'll do raid. I'm not going to do LFR before raid. I'll just wait. And then, if I get lucky with a drop, cool, I can move on to the next thing on the bullion list for now. And yeah, I've been doing bullion stuff on the Monk and Druid as well, doing LFR, doing Last Hurrah, just getting 480s dumped on my head and then making sure I'm up to date with bullion, getting some vault choices. So that's cool. I did a couple +2s on the Monk last night. I got to try to get a couple more in so I can get another bullion choice tonight. That would be really nice. And the other thing I wanted to mention is Siege of Orgrimmar is now a daily lockout. So I have been going in and killing Garrosh and getting mad about not having the Tusks of Manaroth every day.
Every day. Great. Yeah. This is so good for your mental health.
Yeah, it's super fun. I love going there and just listening to that RP for 10 minutes and then doing the fight where Garrosh is dead but just healing himself for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting option because of we assume that the Tusks of Manaroth are going to be available for bronze in MOP Remix, but if I don't have to spend it, then I would maybe like to not do that. So, trying to get my daily Garrosh kills in.
The question I have with this, right? If they want people to have the shoulders, they could just put them on the time walking vendor. That's the thing that's like brutal about this, right? It could just go on the Pandaria time walking vendor as something you can buy. And they're like, no, we'll just change the lockout to a day so people can torture themselves that much more trying to get the 0.1% drop.
why do you want me to kill Garrosh so much? You know, that's the part I don't really understand. I mean, you know, there have been times where I'll go to bat for time-limited rewards and cosmetics and stuff because I do think they serve a purpose in the game. This is not an item with any special properties, right? It's just a cool-looking shoulder mog. Yep. It's only for plate. It's not a cosmetic item. It can only be used by plate wearers. And I also killed Garrosh weekly for 14 months when Siege of Orgrimmar was current content.
Yep.
And I've gone back many, many times and killed it on Mog runs, even when it was not simple to skip right to Garrosh. Like, there's no skill expression here. It's not like, oh, look how good I am. I have my Tusks of Manaroth from back in Mists of Pandaria. Like, it's not... They didn't take them out, so it's not like, oh, well, you had to have done it. It's not like a challenge mode thing or Mage Tower or whatever. It's just a thing that they want you to go farm, and I don't know. I guess having it on a daily lockout is better because then you can just go do it whenever you feel like it. And if you really want to just slam attempts, then you can do that.
Soon you'll be able to do it on any character. Soon you'll be like, hey, you know what? You could have 10 or 12 warriors that you run this on every day, and if one of them gets it, you all get it.
Don't even need to be warriors. Just take everything. Once warbands are in, just everybody, you know, take 50 characters through a day. And I guess at some point, you know, your odds are pretty good then. But yeah, so that's been something I've been doing just kind of on a lark. I don't ever expect to see them drop because they would have dropped for me by now. But anyway, with all that said, you know, we got a new alpha build this week, but I had no time. I didn't even step into it. I've just been super busy with retail, you know, with the live game. It's just so much to do, and there's so many boxes to check off the list. Obviously, my crew is really motivated, so everybody wants to play. So It's been awesome. We've been having a great time. And yeah, part of the problem with alpha too is, like I've kind of identified before, if I don't really have time to sit down and like make a character and get into it, it's like you can't really play it in this testing state. I really got to wait for a more cohesive thing to come out where you can move between zones and kind of play through that whole flow. You can't do that right now. So it's like, even if I think, oh, let me check out the new zone, I got to make a character and do all that stuff and set up talents and set up buttons and set up whatever. And then, you know, then start all over. And it's like, I mean, obviously you're starting fresh in a new zone, but there's no continuity. I don't know how I got here. I don't know I don't know why this is happening necessarily. Yeah. So it's cool. I think it's smart for them to do it this way. I'm just not one of the people that can really dedicate myself to this kind of testing because it just changes too much. I need something more consistent if I have any time to put into it.
Yeah, and to me, it's about, it takes about an hour or 45 minutes or 40 minutes to sort of set up a character to be able to get in and get playing and enjoy it and focus on the content that I'm doing. I will say that Quetzalcoatl now has the dragon riding talent tree open button / thing on him. So you're now able to actually do that as opposed to running a script, because they disabled the script a while back that you'd have to run a script to then open up your Dragonflight dragon riding abilities and you can spend all your points. Now you can actually do that at Quetzalcoatl, which is good. So that is a nice feature that they sort of threw in there for people who are testing, because that is a very irritating thing when you don't have all your vigor points to actually spent into things to make dragon riding fun. But when it comes to alpha itself, there's such a cool variation in all the builds. I mean, this week I think it was 75. Yeah, you start at 75, you went to 77 as far as the level range went for players to sort of enjoy and explore. And it's a lot of fun to sort of check it out, but it is one of those things where you're like, all right, I have 4 hours of game time tonight. I'm willing to spend an hour of that setting up a character, and then I can actually spend the 3 hours enjoying alpha and checking it out. So it is a commitment to do for players to essentially get into it and get going and check the things out. But there's so much fun stuff coming that I'm looking forward to players getting in there and seeing it once it hits beta. And we have character copy in there. We have pretty much the full leveling experience exposed for players to check that out. There'll be raid testing months away from now for people to start checking out some of the raid bosses, what's happening with them. We haven't even seen tier sets yet. We know those are going to be in here somewhere. So there's a lot of stuff that is coming that's exciting about alpha. So I'm looking forward to it. So we'll have to see what all sort of pans out around that. However, there's still a lot going on in World of Warcraft this week. It might be a slightly shorter news week, but there's still lots to talk about. So let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, the weekly event this week is the Wrath of the Lich King Time Walking with Sign of the Scourge going on, where Wrath of the Lich King reputation gains from combat and quests are increased by 50%, and characters level 30 and above can access Wrath of the Lich King dungeons. This Azul Narub, Gundrak, Halls of Lightning, Forge of Souls, Nexus, and Utgard Keep. And this will get you a cache of the Awakened gear. And we say Awakened because it can be pretty much from any of the raids, which is pretty neat to sort of see that happen. And this would be the normal eye level gear. Dungeons are dropping 467 eye level gear with a 1 of 8 adventurer upgrade track. So that's where that sits. As well as the vendor selling 450 eye level gear. And of course, there is Ulduar Time Walking because this is Wrath of the Lich King. And it drops 493s. Version of loot for all max level characters, and of course just a reminder that all of the old 10-man and 25-man achievements have been consolidated and are completable within Time Walking, so if you're someone who does want to do some achievement point hunting, you can do that during the Time Walking week. And of course the raid quest is repeatable for additional loot and a chance at cosmetics, so if you do in fact want to clear the raid more than once, you can actually do this as a possibility, so be sure that you're taking advantage of that as well. Man.
Yeah, it's not more than once per event, but it's more than once ever. Because it used to be just one time on your account or one time on your character, and now it's every time it's up, you can do this. So it's pretty well worth it. One thing I want to point out about the Awakened cache is it's actually on the Awakened upgrade track, which is really nice because you could get that up there. The drops from the raid and stuff are just on the regular track. It's like the champ track, like normal raid. But yeah, that one piece is a pretty cool bonus, actually. Obviously, it's totally random, so it might not be something you want to use, but it's worth a shot. This is a great event. These dungeons are mostly pretty quick runs. They're not really too complicated. Great opportunity to level characters up. You get in there at 30 and above, and I mean, they're super fast and it's good XP. Definitely worth doing on any characters you're trying to gear up. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to have time to do Ulduar Time Walking this week because it is like pretty lucrative. It's a cool run to do. I mean, Ulduar I think is maybe the least good Time Walking raid, but it's okay. I mean, I think they've reined it in quite a bit in terms of the scaling and everything. It's very lucrative for what it's asking you to do, but I mean, how do you fit this into the schedule this week, especially with Remix coming out and everything else? So might just have to fall off, but definitely will try to get in and do some Time Walking dungeons, get the weeklies done on hopefully a few characters. It's just too juicy, and especially if you high roll on that gear cache, that's really nice. So yeah, definitely check these out this week. I want to try to maybe, I don't know how much time I'm going to have, but it would be cool to get my hunter in here and finally finish 65 to 70 or whatever. So it's a good opportunity for that for sure.
Yeah, definitely good to level up inside Time Walking as well. That is certainly something you can take advantage of. But yes, all the leveling for me this week will be done inside Pandaria. So that'll be the big thing for me, is just feeling how fast that experience is. I think will be a really neat way to sort of power level some tunes, finish off some heritage armors, and get a bunch of characters ready for upcoming content that you want to do, as well as just get a lot of really fun cosmetics that are around. So looking forward to that landing later this week. Okay, Pet Battle bonus event is also going on because they like to layer these up because it's not an event everyone likes to participate in, so it's nice when it overlaps with some Time Walking. The Sign of the Critter buff is up, meaning that Battle Pet experience gained is increased by 100%, and there's a quest called The Very Best to win 5 PvP pet battles with a team of level 25 pets, which rewards an Ultimate Pet Battle Training Stone, instantly training any pet to level 25. I will continue to reiterate whenever this rolls around that it would be nice if this was a better reward. It is not hard to earn the amount of pet battle tokens required to buy an Ultimate Pet Battle Training Stone. It does not take long at all. So having a quest to win 5 PvP pet battles that then results in one of these stones, not super exciting. I think they could definitely do something cooler with the rewards for the Pet Battle bonus event. And I will continue to say that because hopefully someday someone will go, you're right, this should be 10 Ultimate Pet Battle Training Stones. And I'll be like, yes, now you will see people do this event more because they actually will want to be able to power level their entire collection, and they can kind of do that with this event. So keep that in mind. All right. Last hurrah, of course, for the week is for the Dragon Isles about participating in a community feast, participating in a hunt, and laying siege to Dragonbane Keep. This doesn't seem like the greatest week for me. I do not like this week at all as far as these events go. The community feast is an okay event. Participating in a hunt, it's okay. Laying siege to Dragonbane Keep, I just never enjoyed. It was not a fun thing for me. So this will not be the one I pick if we get to actually choose last hurrahs towards the end. but that's how you can get your big rewards for the week if that's something you're looking to do. I don't know if you want to weigh in on this, Jason.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not the best. It's not the best. It's not the worst. This past week might have been the worst. Having to do Super Bloom and having to collect 100 Dream Search Coalescence. It's just not super interactive. Maybe the season 2 week is maybe the best. The good thing is a lot of people are doing this, so like you can do Dragonbane Keep in about 4 minutes flat. And you can probably, I mean, if they kick off at the same time, they do overlap. Like if you do Dragonbane Keep, you go wait there a couple minutes before it starts, use Group Finder, get in a full raid, crush it in 3-4 minutes, and then go fly to Community Feast. You could probably do them in the same hour, and then the Grand Hunts are just whatever. They're always rotating around. They don't take very long, so that's not too bad. Except if you want to get like all the stuff, if you're like, okay, I need rep or whatever, so I got to be at the Community Feast the whole time doing stuff, then you might have to pick 2 different schedules or whatever. But overall it's okay. I don't know. Then again, the season 2 one also has this fusion camp. They all have like one thing that is just terrible. This is probably the least obnoxious stuff you actually have to do. It's just the schedule makes it annoying. So I don't know. But it's it's pretty worth it. It's pretty lucrative to do, and especially if you're on a character who could use 480 items. It's I honestly prefer it to get 3,000 rep and do this other stuff, because you had to do some optimization sometimes to get the rep, or you had to find specific things outside of what you wanted to do to get rep. But this is okay. Just do these activities that are up every hour or whatever at some point this week, and then you get the reward. So yeah. It's okay. I mean, again, all of this stuff I think will be improved going forward with the decreased focus on public events, and instead, just delves. Put everything in the delve system for stuff like this for solo players to do. That's the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the delve system is something I'm looking forward to, and seeing how they choose to use it. So we'll have to see what that sort of pans out like as we get farther and farther into War Within Alpha and Beta, and actual launch of expansion. All right, the PvP brawl for the week is Arathi Blizzard. This is Arathi Basin, but with a different weather effect. It is cold. There is a storm happening. You cannot see the lumber mill from the lumber mill to the blacksmith. The waters around the blacksmith are all frozen, creating new paths that people can sort of come across. I do wish the ice was slippery. That would be a nice physics thing that they could add in, because I know they've done it elsewhere, so that might be cool. But when it comes down to a battle round, this is, in my opinion, their experiment with weather effects. I just wish that they had then implemented weather effects farther throughout the game, because I love weather effects. It makes the world feel really alive. And I think they could definitely do more with it. But in general, as a brawl, it's, vanilla. It's not like super amazing, crazy. It's also not terrible. It's just kind of like, oh, this is all right. I mean, it's different, but it's not like, hey, I'm super excited to hop in and check out this cool thing. You do it once, you see the weather effects, you can recognize, hey, you know what, this would be cool if this was elsewhere in the game, and then that's about it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think it might be too disruptive to have that stuff like really modifying the outdoor world on a regular basis, but it might be cool as like part of some kind of an event, or something, a holiday, I guess, or what have you. But yeah, this is one of the sort of less wacky brawls, right? It's just, okay, here's this battleground that and it's a little bit different this week, so have fun. Yeah, not really one of my favorites. Not really a highlight where it's like, oh, I got to go check that out. But it is up this week if you're doing PvP, and that's what's going on with the brawl. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, gotta put yourself in Arathi Blizzard mode to step in there.
The awakened boss of the week, world boss of the week, is Bazuil the Dreaded Flame. This is the Fire Proto-Dragon Azure Span. This is dropping 499 eye-level loot, so if you're wanting to get yourself some 499s, be sure you get out to Azure Span and kill Bazuil the Dreaded Flame. That is certainly worthwhile doing. Mythic Plus affixes for the week are Fortified, Afflicted, and Raging, meaning non-boss enemies have more health and deal increased damage. While in combat, afflicted souls periodically appear and can seek the aid of players. These can be gotten rid of by being fully healed or dispelled. And non-boss enemies enrage at 30% health remaining, temporarily granting immunity to crowd control effects. This, as much as it's irritating to have afflicted, I don't hate this fortified week for some reason. I don't think it's the best week, but raging to me is a dispellable affix, basically, that you're only going to see on higher end keys that you don't need to do to be able to actually get your max rewards for the week. And as much as Afflicted is something that does sort of encourage people to bring a specific group comp, which is a problem, I agree, it's not as bad as some of the other ones of trying to actually rotate stuns and everything on these ads. I think it's a little bit easier to have them be dispelled. There's slightly more dispels across the raid. There's slightly more heal up opportunities across the raid. Not raid, I keep saying raid, but group that you're in for these mythic pluses. So it's... I think this is like if there was a difficulty scale, this is like a 7 on the fortified weeks for me out of 10 as far as this goes.
Yeah, I mean, the big problem here is that Afflicted is just so highly comp dependent, and if your comp is good at dealing with Afflicted, then it's like it's not even there. And if your comp is not set up to deal with Afflicted, then you're in trouble. Resto Shaman is great this week because they just drop Poison Cleanse Totem, and then Afflicted goes away, both of them. And yeah, so as long as you don't need Poison Cleanse Totem, which you might in like Brackenhide or something, I guess, but yeah, it's, you know, it's the degree of complexity for teams with like Resto Shaman versus not is much different, right? Also, if you're a DPS that can't bring this, then if you're looking for Q spots in the, you know, in the group finder, if you're trying to plug into something, well, if you're a warrior or a demon, a death knight or something, like, good luck out there, because teams are not going to want you over like a ret paladin that can just help them with Afflicted, and then, you know, they can keep rolling. The raging rework isn't too bad, although fort raging early in the season could be a little nasty, because if you have a mob that you need to stun up or whatever, and then you get it to that 30% window and now you can't stun it and it's going to do its bad thing, like if you don't kill it before you know the bad thing starts killing you, that could be actually pretty nasty. But you know, overall I think the changes to raging are pretty good. It's not like they're going to do bonus damage. It's just you can't stop them from doing that cast or that frontal or, you know, whatever the case may be. So you may want to pick specific targets to kind of nuke down first or whatever, you know, or get that stun off a little early, you know, get the stun off at like 35. It'll go stun immune and like wake up from the stun. But if you can kind of mess up the timing a bit, you know, if you get that stun off at a really good time. So there's some counterplay to it. It's not, without the bonus damage, it's not super punishing, but still, you don't want those mobs like free casting and just blowing up your whole team. So you can still interrupt them, like kicks and everything like that will still work on anything that's interruptible. But, you know, obviously soft CCs are very important in most keystones. So that's a factor. The biggest thing is, though, for a lot of players, like, you don't really, like I was saying earlier, like 10s are not something you even really need to be doing unless you feel like you want to, or they're fun or whatever. So if you don't want to deal with it, then just don't, and just have fort Afflicted, and that's not too bad. So overall, I think it's a decent week. I would love to get my last 2 dungeons done on plus 10 or higher for the season, just to say that I did it. So maybe this week will be the week for those 2. Yeah, overall, I don't think it's too bad. I think fort is generally going to feel better than Tyrannical this season, because we are powering up so much and everybody's just got the big AoE booms and everything. And the game just kind of keeps trending more and more towards those like really optimized, super high throughput multi-target setups, you know? So even on a fort week, like, we should be tearing through the trash and the bosses are just going to fall over. So I think it'll be a good week. I don't have any big concerns, but yeah, you have to pay attention to Afflicted before you step in a dungeon. You got to know what the plan is. You got to have the comp, and you got to know who's doing what, and then you'll be good to go.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It certainly makes a big difference whether or not you have the right comp. It's a struggle week when it comes to that sort of thing. I am looking forward to War Within and what they choose to do, and I hope that they find some more less comp dependent affixes, because you're right. I mean, if you do have the right composition, this is a totally non-affix, but if you don't, then you are going to have a much different experience. And I think that is a weird way to design an affix for a dungeon. I think there should be either group accountability or player accountability on how to react to what these affixes are. And it shouldn't be about which toolkit you choose to bring to your raid, to your group, as far as people bringing the correct counters to affixes inside of specific classes or races. I think it should very much be counters to affixes because of how players choose to play their classes or races, as opposed to, So So, yes, I think that is a problem with this particular one. All right, WoW remake.
Yeah, it's just a whiff on these. Just sorry to cut in, but that's just a whiff on these new affixes that we got in Dragonflight, Afflicted and Incorporeal.
Yeah,
just super comp dependent, and that sucks. Like, I don't necessarily want them to give every class like cookie cutter abilities. Like everybody gets a purge and everybody gets some kind of hard CC lockdown, whatever. Like you want to have different tools for different classes, but you just end up. I think they ended up with a couple classes really feeling like they can't really effectively participate in these affixes, and that's just obnoxious. And also it ends up being a ton of pressure on the healer who already has a lot of pressure on them. So I think Entangling was fine. Entangling is a great example of a good affix in 2024, I think, because you have to pay attention to it, right? There are some times where you have to just eat it because you can't move, because you need to be in a specific place. So you just have to take the stun. There are ways to counterplay it where you can use abilities to just ignore it, immune it, break it, whatever. And that feels really cool. So I think that one feels interactive and not like super punishing, but something that you have to pay attention to. Whereas the other two they added are just, they're mega punishing in terms of group comp, and they add so much extra strain to healers specifically, because healer is usually the one that's going to be expected to deal with them, or to bail out the team in the event that they're not dealt with. So, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing the two of them just go away. Honestly, I don't think they add a lot.
I agree. I definitely think affixes like this should go away, and they should find a better solution to putting together an affix that. I would rather have, I'm trying to think of like an older one. I'd almost rather have like the Gahoonies situation over top of one of these, simply because that again was about player accountability and less about, the situation that is just, hey, sorry, you didn't bring these 3 classes or this class or one of these classes, so this is just going to be a more negative experience for you. Like, oh, well, that's unfortunate. I dislike that. It's nice when players actually have the toolkit, or at least the ability to avoid things. I almost wish, and we saw this a little bit in Shadowlands, where there was an NPC at the start of the dungeon, and you could actually choose your buff at the start of the dungeon. I almost wish there was like an equipment vendor or package at the start of a dungeon for Mythic Plus, and you could pick up one of 3 different things that would help with affixes for the week, and that was kind of like hey, here's your accountability. Everyone has one of these. Choose to use it at your leisure when it comes to how you're going to counter stuff.
Yeah.
To sort of give players the tools when they hop in. So you don't have to worry about all classes being the same or reacting the same. But if you're a class that, doesn't have a large mass dispel kind of idea, here's a tool that's on a 1-minute cooldown or whatever that you can actually use. And you can only use it 10 times or something like that. But it's an AoE dispel. And maybe you can only buy one of the items off of this vendor. And there's another item that like increases healing output or increases damage output or increases, and yes, still that would then benefit those classes that have the ability to sort of go that direction. Or it gives as opposed to dying, you pop back up with 30% life or something like that, right? Those sorts of tools would be something that would still help the classes that already could counter those affixes in a strong way, but it doesn't leave the classes that can't in a situation where they just aren't able to do anything about it, which I think is unfortunate. So I'd almost prefer that there was some sort of tool like that in there. So maybe something to consider for the future when it comes to Mythic Plus like this. All right, as I was starting into there, WoW Remix Mists of Pandaria is kicking off Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That's 1 p.m. Eastern, worldwide, which means everyone gets to hop in there on Thursday and jam this out. I'll be at work, but when I get home from work, I will check this out. It is certainly something that I think a lot of people are pumped for. We will be sure to talk about first impressions and whatnot next week when we actually get into the show. But yeah, it's Mists of Pandaria with an accelerated leveling track with essentially an entirely accelerated experience for players who want to actually check out that expansion. And of all the expansions to do it with, I think it's going to be a really fun one for a lot of players. There's a lot of really unique rewards. We've covered this a bunch on the show, and I'm looking forward to hearing what players are pumped and excited about after this thing kicks off, and how many mass speed leveled characters they end up with once they start diving into this sort of stuff, as well as doing content on classes that couldn't do the content because they didn't exist during Mists of Pandaria. Might be a cool thing for people to check out, because you should be able to make a Drakthir and get in there and do Mists of Pandaria content on Drakthir, which would be wicked in a lot of situations. I can certainly think of several bosses where picking a player up and moving them to another location would be a really nice thing to do. So, yeah.
Darumu, maybe.
Oh man, even
the guy who just can't do the maze, and you're like every time you're like, this guy's gonna die when the maze starts.
There's
just that. Swoop him right out of there.
Swoop him out of there. Yeah, there's definitely that. That's a good one. There's definitely that one. I was thinking of Thunder King with moving people from platform to platform, but that would be another nice one. So there's just a lot of bosses in there where I think it could be pretty fun to play around with new classes and experience that. So looking forward to what this looks like when it all comes out. All right, notable hotfixes for the week, once we dive into that. We did have a bunch of class tuning come in here. Demon Hunters on Vengeance, the Sigil of Silence duration was reduced to 4 seconds from 5. The Sigil of Silence cooldown has been increased by 30 seconds. The Cycle of Binding now reduces Sigil cooldown by 2 seconds per trigger as opposed to 3, and Soul Cleave damage was reduced by 8%. So Vengeance Demon Hunters getting themselves hit with the nerf bat there, it looks like. Trying to get them back in line, I guess, with where they should be at performance-wise with other classes. Balanced Druids, your Season 4 2-set bonus now increases the damage of your next Wrath or Starfire by 50% up from 30%, and your Season 4 2-set bonus now reduces the Astral Power cost of your next Star Surge or Starfall by 30% up from 15%, and increases the damage done by 60% up from 40%. Now, I talked about this last week on the show. Balanced Druids were using their old 2-set bonus over using the new 4-set bonus gear because it was an actual DPS gain. So I'm hoping that these numbers, which it looks like they do because it's a pretty large shift, are what it takes to sort of push this new 4-set bonus into being worth wearing for Balanced Druids. So that looks like a good sign. I'm quite pleased to see that, and hopefully we start seeing numbers roll in over the next couple of weeks that prove that is the correct adjustment that needed to happen for that class. That would be good to see. They also did some nerfs here to Brewmaster Monk. You got your Keg Smash damage reduced, your Spinning Crank damage reduced, your Summon White Tiger damage reduced, your effectiveness of Stagger against magical attacks increased, so you're actually slightly better against magical attacks by 10%, and your Healing Sphere healing was increased by 10% as well. So less damage output, better survivability, kick it in for Brewmasters, which I guess is technically a buff, because you're doing your job better, right?
No one will feel that way, but the intent of the class is to be alive and to contribute some damage.
Exactly.
I mean, these are somewhat minor adjustments, although the White Tiger statue nerf is pretty big. The stagger, increasing stagger against magic damage is really nice. Yeah. And, the other damage adjustments are somewhat minor. So, I don't know. I'm not playing Brewmaster at a very high level, but I did, I took it for a spin last night in normal raid and got some gear and did some very low keys, and it felt really good. So I always like the Brewmaster playstyle since I checked it out in Legion, and it feels pretty strong. So even at low gear, which is awesome. The overall tank DPS picture, I always feel like I'm at the bottom of the list looking up. So that, whatever. Yeah. Bring everybody in line a little bit. Sure. Go ahead.
Rogues, as far as Assassination Rogue goes, they actually did this in a way that I thought was interesting. That the lingo they used is that ability and auto attack damage increased by 6%. It does not affect PvP combat. Typically, they just say all damage increased by 6%. That's what they typically put inside the note. So it's interesting for me to specify ability and auto attack damage increased by 6%, because it means the same thing, because all of your abilities and your auto attack damage has now gone up by 6%. So congratulations, Assassination Rogues. You now do more damage. Just different way of phrasing it.
I wonder if it means specifically poisons aren't affected. Is it a way to get around poison damage or something?
I don't know. It's
not an ability, right? And it's not an auto attack. It's just a modifier. So maybe that's what it is. It is a weird wording.
From what we normally see, right? Normally see all damage for assassination increased by 6%. That's normally what we see. And you're like, oh, okay, they're doing it differently. So why? What does this mean? Rogues, tell us if there's something that happened like this. They also fixed an issue that caused the Assassination Rogue Season 3 and 4 bonuses to do slightly less damage than intended. So that got fixed. And Warlocks, rejoice. Your Affliction got yourself your buffs that came in, as well as Destruction. Doom Blossom, Vile Taint, Soul Flame, and Soul Rot all got themselves some big buffs. Vile Taint by 25% and Soul Flame by 20%, so large damage increases there for Affliction. And then Destruction Warlocks got a little tweak. Chaos Bolt damage, Conflagrate, and Incinerate damage all increased as well, up to 5%, which is very nice. So certainly worth something checking out. And Jason, what are protection warriors getting developer notes about? This is like a chat about this.
Yeah, there were some pretty nice changes actually to Prot that came in last week. They say their goal is to reduce deaths to dangers that are most likely to kill them, like burst or magic damage. Which, I honestly haven't felt very squishy in Season 4, but I'm a very seasoned Prot Warrior player, and I prioritize being alive and kind of a defensive posture. So, that might be part of why, but, they mentioned some talents that Warriors have against burst and magic damage, like Disrupting Shout, Bolster, Battle-Scarred Veteran, but they're difficult to reach in the talent tree. It's just difficult to set up the build to get them. So what they did was there's a talent called Battering Ram that modifies Shield Charge, which is a new ability that we got in Dragonflight. It's at the very bottom of the Prot tree. It's a very powerful ability. Like, you're taking Shield Charge. Like, you have to. It's too good not to take it. And this whole time, we've been taking both of its modifiers. Battering Ram was a thing that would increase your auto attack damage and speed for a few seconds after casting Shield Charge. So what they're doing is they are reducing Battering Ram's effectiveness, and they're moving some of its benefits into other talents, other abilities. So just to give you some more flexibility there, they did a flat 5% damage buff. Devastator, which is the talent that replaces the Devastate active ability and makes your auto attacks do the Devastate effect, it's been increased by 30%. Ignore Pain got a 6% buff to how much it heals. So that's all wonderful. And also Battering Ram, like, you just don't really take it anymore. You don't need to. There are better options. They changed Disrupting Shout, which is a modifier on Intimidating Shout. Intimidating Shout is your 2-minute cooldown area taunt. Disrupting Shout modifies it so that it also interrupts casts and prevents casting on interrupted targets for 4 seconds. They have now also added a modifier that reduces the cooldown by 15 seconds. So if you talent into Disrupting Shout, it's now a 75-second cooldown, which is basically like every pull on a fort week, more or less, right? Or every other pull at least. So that's kind of an interesting option if you're in a place where you need a lot of those kind of control tools against casters. A big change was Enduring Alacrity, which is just like a passive buff talent that's pretty low down the Prot tree. It now increases stam and armor by 10%, up from 5%, and haste by 2%, up from 1%. So this is just 2% flat haste, plus 10% stam and armor. So this is like the go-to. You talent out of Battering Ram and into Enduring Alacrity, and you profit. So that's what I've been messing with. I haven't really messed with Disrupting Shout because I'm not really sure where I would be using it. I use Intimidating Shout frequently. It's a nice tool to have to just snap a bunch of stuff to you, especially in a dungeon. But I haven't really felt like I needed that cooldown reduction, or that like the modifier on the interrupt was super important for what I've been doing. So I haven't messed with it too much. I just went Enduring Alacrity, and I actually have way too much haste at the moment. But I'm going to be cutting a ton once I get my jewelry optimized for Season 4 with the bullion stuff, from with the Vault of the Incarnate's rings, which don't have a lot of haste on them combined, and the neck from Volcaros, which has no haste on it. So I'm going to be cutting thousands of haste rating in the next few weeks here, so it'll be nice to have that extra 2% flat haste from this talent that I didn't have before. So I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, I don't feel like I'm doing a ton more damage, but I must be, right? Like the number went up, so I just don't pay attention to that kind of stuff, right? So I think the spec continues to feel good to play. I'm happy with the way the trees are set up, and it is nice that I don't feel like I have to take both of those bottom row modifiers on a very, high level ability, right? In Shield Charge, just freeing up a point to do something a bit more interesting with, right? Now I have, if I need Disrupting Shout, now I know that I have a point that I can move around and take it without having some big detriment, right? I'm not breaking my build because we need Disrupting Shout for this, for this dungeon or whatever. So
right.
That should be the whole kind of point of the talent trees, right? Is the flexibility and being able to pick something that suits a situation. So I'm happy with it. I think they're good changes.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that came in for you then. Dawn of the Infinite dungeons and bosses should now drop Awaken Crests. So if you're someone who is going back and running those Dawn of the Infinite mega dungeons, you actually get some Awaken Crests out of it, which is a good reward. So I'm glad they sort of hotfixed that in for players who wanted to get some. The item fixes that came in here... I wanted to mention they fixed an item that prevented They fixed an issue that prevented heroic, mythic, and mythic plus dungeons from dropping flight stones and awakened crests correctly. Was this in our favor or not, Jason? I am unaware of whether this was in our favor.
This was in our favor because these weren't dropping. Okay. I didn't really run into this, I don't think. But yeah, I heard other people complaining about doing stuff and not getting crests. And like flight stones, to be honest, you don't really get a lot of flight stones from doing dungeons anyway. I don't recommend dungeons as a flight stone acquisition method in terms of like yield per time spent. But you do have to do them for crests, and you're probably in there for your crests. So if you're not getting them, that's a problem. Luckily, I don't think this impacted me, but that was not good. That is the thing that you want is for dungeons to drop awakened crests. So they should be doing that now.
And the reason why I ask the way I ask is simply because not dropping correctly could imply they were dropping 4 times as many, could imply they were not dropping at all, could imply...
Right.
They never specified what the issue was. Yeah. They just specified that it was resolved and that it was something not working right. And you're like, okay, but like, what was the thing that was happening is always the curious question for me when I see these sorts of things. So, yeah. As far as mounts go, Tyvan Awooz when summoned like a good boy. So be sure that you are aware that your Tyvan will come out and awoo correctly, the way that he should be. And non-player character hotfixes. This is not something we see all that often. Kessa, the personal tabard vendor located in Valdrakken, should now be available to all alts after completing the quest line to unlock the personal tabard. And yeah, like you said, personal tabard is something that is long overdue. I'm kind of surprised it took them this long to do it, but wicked to feature. Great thing to add, because a lot of people just don't wear their guild tabards or just put them on and then just build their entire transmog around them all the time, but being able to make your own tabard is certainly a cool feature to add in there that I think could go overlooked pretty easily.
Yeah, and you can do it like per character, which is really cool. The implementation is a little weird, but it's not too bad. Like you have to get the personal tabard item, which you can buy from the vendor that will help you edit your tabard, and then you can do this all in the barber shop in Valdrakken. So yeah, that's nice that you don't have to do the quest over and over again to unlock this feature. I'm can't imagine that would have been intended, but it maybe just didn't go out that way or needed to be fixed or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, really cool feature to have, especially if you're somebody who wants to really customize the way your character looks or whatever. It's a nice bonus, and the quest line is not that long and it's pretty fun to do. But then once you do it, then every character can just have that. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, one of the fixes that went in last week with that actual quest line that we had to complete to get our weekly rewards, the Blooming Dream Seeds now only require 3 seeds instead of 5, as the text originally stated, to be able to complete that quest. So fortunately that came in. They also fixed a bug preventing the completion of Lotus Tea after completing the Pools of Youth. They also fixed an issue with Get My Results not having quest progression tracked properly, and players can now call for aid when mounted on the quest at the source. So if any of those quests were bugged for you, they have been resolved. All right, last live bit of news that we want to talk about here before we move into alpha stuff. The quest chain, not really quest chain, the short story is the best way to put this. A Whisper of Warning came out this past week. This is Delilah S. Dawson putting together a story. The little blurb that I'll read here, without spoiling anything really, says Khadgar has dispatched Ilaria Windrunner on a dark mission, one that portends an uncertain future of Azeroth. Before she departs, she visits her home of Silvermoon on a mission of peace and connection. Much remains unsaid between Ilaria and her son, Erator, hindered by fear and misunderstanding. But Ilaria would have her son know his mother and her intentions before a new evil threatens Azeroth again. And so this is actually a link to show notes in this as well. But it's a PDF. You can choose to download the PDF if you want to look at it. And it is, it's a short story you can read that's all about Ilaria reconnecting with her son and time together. And it's wicked when we get these little bits. This is sort of like what I talk about having that transition patch for an expansion. This is where we start to get all of these things. Typically we get a book somewhere in here to help people sort of bridge the gap between the two. I don't think we're going to get one, Jason, this go around.
I don't know. I have to admit I still haven't finished reading War of the Scaleborn, and I put it down for so long, I think I got to just start it over at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, their publishing schedule used to be pretty predictable. Like, okay, the summer before an expansion comes out, you're going to get a book that fills in the gaps. We didn't get that the last couple times, but they've been doing all kinds of different stuff with publishing. So I think that's sort of where it ended up. I believe I haven't read this yet because, like I said, I'm behind in my reading and I kind of want to catch up before I move ahead. I'm pretty sure that this takes place after the events in the game. So if you haven't played the campaign questing that came in last week, you should do that first. Go talk to Khadgar and go hang out with Illyria and do that stuff, and then read this. That seems to be the chronology there. So, yeah, I love when they start doing the multimedia stuff in the lead up to an expansion. I mean, short stories. We've had like audio dramas in the past, which were awesome. The Gul'dan one leading up to Legion was incredible.
The Legion ones were phenomenal as far as what they did. Yeah.
They did one for actually for Illyria and Turalyon too that was good, but it just wasn't as good as the Gul'dan one.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do comics, they do the animatic things on YouTube usually for a new expansion. So yeah, we're not quite there with all that stuff yet, but like it's gonna start flowing. That's how they sort of promote these expansions, is with these types of publishing endeavors. So that's cool. It's exciting when that stuff starts hitting and they start unraveling the story in some different venues. So I'm looking forward to this. I don't feel like it's time for me to read this story yet, and I got to catch up a bit and find some time to do that.
Yeah, I am certainly looking forward to when we can actually start diving in and checking out more and more story of the bridge between the two expansions. So I'll need to read the short story as well. All right, War Within Alpha has gotten its pass of updates, as we talked about. So Azj-Kahet, the new zone, and delves are available for players to test, as well as the City of Threads, Arakara, the City of Echoes. I'm going to have so much fun saying Arakara throughout this expansion. I'm just going to say that's these are both dungeons, the City of Threads and Arakara. The new Battleground was actually also up and available for testing. So basically, this is the Deep Hall Ravine, which is themed in the Ringing Deeps, which is a very cool place to explore and check out, where the foreman Uzjax and architect Rufius, man, my brain just went to like Rufio way back in the day with Robin Williams. But anyways, are tasked with collecting as much valuable ore, gems, and crystals for their respective priorities. Rufius, the unbound earthen. Oh my god, my brain is just melting at the moment. So apologies to everyone. Has big plans for the ore and gems found in the Deep Hall Ravine, but the machine speakers of the earthenworks, I'm going to learn all these words eventually, are quite possessive of such precious metals. Uzjax and his team plan to secure these materials before Rufius and his band of misfits get their hands on it. So it's like fixing machines, gathering materials. It's an 8v8 and 10v10 battleground that will be available in all battleground modes. It's a hybrid map in which each team earns points by controlling either of the two active minecarts that move along the track on the map, or capturing a lucrative gem, the Deep Hall Crystal, that is located in the middle of the map. The Deep Hall Crystal can be returned at either capture point located on the high ground on the opposing sides of the map. Additionally, there's a minecart track that runs above the battleground play space where players can hop in a cart vehicle and quickly traverse the map, allowing for quick engagements and repositioning. If you're looking to playtest this, you can do it through the group finder and the random battleground group finder on Alpha. Only the Deep Hall Ravine map will be available as a random battleground on Alpha, so it's the only one you'll be able to queue into for a random battleground. So just keep that in mind. I like the idea of having the cart vehicle to traverse the map quickly. I think that will add a lot of spice to this battleground. It'll be pretty cool to check out. And like I said, I'll eventually get all the words down, so that'll be easier on the show for everybody who enjoys hearing me say Rufius. Apparently, it's going to be a common thing with this battleground.
We'll have to get in there and have like a weekly Deep Hall Ravine update, so we can just get into this bunch and figure it out.
Deep Hall Ravine died.
You could read all the NPC names But yeah, this is the first time we've had a new battleground since like the beginning of BFA. Like the BFA pre-event was the last time we had a new BG, I think. So it's been a while, and I haven't checked this out. Like I said, I didn't play Alpha this week. I wonder if they'll put this in a bit early, because that's kind of what they did in BFA, right? They gave us a little kind of preview. That'd be cool if it came in, in the pre-patch or whatever. But I'll check it out once it goes live just to see what it's like. I'm not a big PvP or anything, but it does, like, the pitch sounds cool. It seems like a cool space, and the overall flow of the BG seems kind of nice. Reminds me a little bit of Deep Wind Dunk, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it has some kind of element of that. That would be cool. We love that brawl around here. So it's got like the carts, but also the stuff you can capture. So Yeah, well, it's cool that they're adding a new BG finally. I just haven't had a chance to actually check it out myself, but yeah, it's in there for testing now, so that's a nice little addition.
Yeah. Warbands, roughly 2,000 more achievements from Dragonflight and earlier have been switched from character specific to account wide in order to allow your entire warband to make progress towards them. Please note, based on quirks of implementation, any incomplete achievements that were converted will lose all progress on alpha with this change. In the live game, these achievements will go through a conversion process, which will either merge progress across all your characters in the warband together, or take the furthest progressed from each of the characters in this case. And so, yeah, basically, if you had working the Isles, obtain 100 skill points in a Legion category or 2 primary professions is sort of the example that they use for that. So you'll basically just grab one of those and it'll be whatever is furthest progressed as far as that goes. Your thoughts and feedback about specific achievement changes is appreciated. Please note that this feature is still in development and there may be some adjustments in which final achievements become account-wide before launch. Yeah, like they're just to me, the process of going through all of the achievements in the game and deciding which ones are going to become warband account wide, and deciding of those which ones merge progress and which ones keep the farthest progress, and have that is it's a lot of work. That is a lot of work to go through all of that. So I'm glad they're doing it. It's going to be a much better player experience. This is a definitely huge amount of just administrative figuring out going on to make this happen, not to mention the tech back end of actually making it all work and making sure it works smoothly, because you do not want to break everyone's achievements and have to figure out how to fix that later on, because that would be very bad, because it's something people value a lot. So yeah, this is a tricky one. I'm glad they're taking the time to fix it, and I'm glad it's happening in alpha and not something that they're like, we hope this works when it goes live.
Right. We're gonna do this in a .5. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because some of these are ones that have, logical sort of collaboration to them or whatever. Like, do this thing X number of times.
Yeah.
But like the example that worked in the Isles is, it's not the point of like, okay, everybody go. Let me make 50 characters and everybody gets 2 skill points in a profession, and now I have 100 skill points. So, some of this stuff has to be. They have to take sort of a human eye to it and go, okay, which one of these makes sense for gameplay reasons to combine and which ones don't or whatever. But there will be a really nice element of having warbands, if you have some of those bigger achievements that you want to work on, maybe you do have ways like, okay, I could do this on this character or that on the other character or whatever. And it's all just feeding into that same achievement. That's going to be really cool. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm not a big achievement hunter myself, but man, it might help with certain things, that I just never got around to, or was like, oh, it's too much work to do on one tune or whatever. So yeah, really, really nice addition. I mean, I think it's, when it comes to warband stuff, it's not really like the coolest part of what they're doing, but it's good that it's also included.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed with that. All right, the character level, they did a developer note here saying, with each phase, we encourage players to make new template characters and avoid using their previous characters as they could potentially be in a broken state. And so the new character template is 78, and it goes up to maximum of level 80. So yeah, players were able to hit 80 this past week with the hotfixes that went in for the updates that went in for alpha for people to be able to check out. Earthen characters have been temporarily disabled, so apparently there was something wrong with Earthen, and so they'll get those back up and running, I'm sure, soon for players who want to do testing with that. The following hero talents have been made available for playtesting in Alpha Phase 4, and this was Stormbringer for Elemental and Enhancement Shamans, for ones who wanted to hop in and check out the Stormbringer. It just sounds like a cool hero talent thing, man. Stormbringer is just, you instantly pictured that shaman bringing down the lightning, and man, it's cool. So I hope people are enjoying that. Stormbringer shamans are all about harnessing the storms, increasing their power of their lightning spells, and gaining new lightning ability, Tempest. So yeah, you get to check out a new ability from this too. It's not just enhancing the stuff you have; you actually get to do something cool and new. So check out Tempest.
And lightning flavored, which is always a cool thing for shamans. So. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, some of these have some cool new visuals too. I haven't actually seen this shit. Like I said, I haven't played it, and Shaman would be one of the go-to things I'd be testing. I haven't seen what it looks like, but Mountain Thane for Warrior got a bunch of new lightning themed stuff, and there's some new spell effects that pop off while you're in combat, which are really cool. So this is probably, hopefully in that vein. I would think so. I mean, yeah, the shaman like wielding the storm powers is so iconic in WoW, so I think it's cool, really cool to express that a bit more in the game. So we'll see how that plays out. I don't know how many more hero talents are missing from the game. I don't know what else we're waiting on, but they've been dropping them in as we go every build.
I haven't been putting a list down, but yeah, some builds we get 2 or 3, some builds we get 1. So it's adding up for sure. We're getting closer and closer. I'm sure they'll let us know when they're all in the game and probably do a blog post highlighting all of them, is what I imagine we'll probably end up seeing. The other thing that they did, and this is one of those things where you appreciate this once it's in the game without noticing that it always should have been in the game, which is they improved the clarity when enchanting items. Now when you go to enchant an item and you select the enchant, it will actually make it so your mouse cursor only highlights on items that you can enchant. All items that you can't enchant with that enchant that you've currently selected will actually be dimmed icons, so that they're not as visual, they don't stand out in your inventory. And there's animations when an item has been enchanted. So this is one of those things where you're like, oh, this just makes sense and should be there, and I'm really happy about it, and they're adding it. And it's something that a player, I think a lot of the time, will not actually even notice was not in the game once they actually do it. They'll do it and be like, oh, this is just really nice and convenient. And they'll kind of sort of forget about it because it's so ingrained in how things should work that, it's now there now. So I'm very pleased they're doing this. It's great to go, hey, I have a big bag full of items. I'm going to enchant bracers. And you click on it and everything that's not a bracer in your bag de-highlights. And when you mouse over a bracer, your cursor highlights. That's cool. I just think that's a nice touch from UI stuff. But I really like UI changes. So it's just me.
Yeah, just continuing to pay dividends for like the commitment to updating and modernizing the UI, I think, that started with Dragonflight. So yeah, cool to see for sure. I mean, there's a ton of UI updates that we just got, and there's a bunch already in the alpha build for War Within. And I mean, the UI is like literally how we interact with the game, right? So the just cleaning it up, making it more modern, making it more user friendly is awesome. I think they did a great job with it. And in the past when we'd see like a new UI element come in, so we got a new tool or something, or we'd see an update to one feature of the UI, that would just kind of be it. And it might be another couple years till they really changed anything else. Yeah. And this has been like every patch, there's something. Every time there's a new version, a new build of the game, there are UI updates since 10.0. And I love it. It's so cool to see.
Yeah, continuing on that track, they updated the world map icons for rares, rare elites, cave entrances, teleporters, great vault, catalyst converter, dig sites, pet battles, dungeons, and raids. So they all have new icons and new updated art. They also added checkboxes for tracking. Have been added to the quest log for easier management. So you actually click a checkbox if you want to track something or not track something, as opposed to holding down shift and clicking on it. Characters on the character select screen are now directly clickable within the scene. So you can actually, I assume, spin your characters inside of your warband, as what I'm assuming this is, but we'll have to find out what that actually looks like.
You can probably just also like log into the game by double clicking on a character.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, it could be.
Again, I haven't even logged into this build, so I don't know for sure, but yeah, they've been sort of just building the Warband login screen sort of piece by piece here in the alpha builds we've seen so far. So they're just, the features are coming in and they're just standing it up right in front of our eyes. So yeah, probably something like that where you can, maybe you can spin them around and then log into the game with them right off of there.
Yeah. The group manager has been updated with new art and feature improvements, including additional options to restrict group pings. So if you're someone who really dislikes when you get into a random group and someone just spams pings all of the time, you can now choose to restrict group pings. Easier access to both world and unit raid markers. UI panel got reorganized, so related options are together in sections, and added instance options previously only found in the character portrait dropdown. I assume that's like, hey, here's the instance difficulty, resetting the instance, setting the loot type for the instance. That was all things that used to only be buried in there. So I assume the group manager now has those features built into it as well. The health bars have been updated with a visualization that shows the percentage of temporary max health that is depleted. So that's another option that they've thrown in there as well. Man, lots of alpha updates. Glad to see it all happening. I'm sure we'll get another wave this week at some point. But I also wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit of a break during the Mists of Pandaria launch stuff, but I don't think there will be. I think we'll probably still get another hefty chunk of notes for Alpha build and see what's happening with that. I think whatever remixes is probably already in the bag, and they're just working full steam on Alpha at the moment. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
I mean, a lot of work for the live ops team, which I always feel bad for that crew. But yeah, I mean, you got a worldwide launch on Thursday, and then probably another Alpha build to push at some point Thursday afternoon, right? You got Thursday morning, you're standing up the worldwide MOP remix launch, and then. Yeah, I mean, we've been seeing builds every Thursday afternoon. I guess the question is, when do we start, talking about beta? Because now we have all 4 zones in. We have the level 80 cap. We've seen each zone in sequence. We got the battleground in there. We got a bunch of dungeons. So I don't know. I don't know if they have like a set criteria or if it's a set amount of time or whatever. Is it we need this much stuff in the game before we flip it over to beta, or does it need to be in alpha with this much stuff testable for however long? But I mean, that'll be, I think, when it'll be much more exciting for me to check out testing stuff, because hopefully character copy will be there, which just makes me, it makes it so much more convenient to be able to spend time in the testing environment. Yeah. And then to be able to have the continuity, going from the intro experience all the way through the leveling and all that, and kind of see how everything hooks together. I'll probably start playing a bit more once we have that, that cohesiveness in the testing environment. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know if when they're going to flip that beta switch, if it's going to be soon or what. But obviously we know that they got to get all the zones and everything in there before that happens, and that happened as of this week. So it's moving along. I mean, they're definitely making good on the weekly updates and everything like that.
Yeah. All right, one bit of news here for those Season of Discovery enjoyers. Basically, they've now have the catch-up buff implemented for Discoverer's Delight. This means that players can now gain the benefit of Discoverer's Delight experience buff, which increases experience gains by 150% for all players through level 39 and 100% for players level 40 to 49. It's a great time to join Season Discovery, whether you're just joining for fun or creating a whole new character. Players can also visit any innkeeper in the capital cities to turn the experience buff off or on. If there's someone who wants to just really experience the classic leveling without the buff, you can do that. I recommend leaving the buff on, because I feel like a lot of the level experience can become a bit of a slog, and there is a lot of fun stuff to do when you hit max level. My Season Discovery stuff this week has been a bit rough. We've been having some attendance issues. I mean, obviously it's summertime, so we're at least moving towards summertime. So people are getting busier and wanting to spend more time away from the game. We have a lot of live stuff with Season 4 that launched. We have Pandaria launching later this week. We have Cataclysm launching later this month. So a lot of content that's pulling players in different directions away from the game. We'll probably start doing some recruiting soon to try and fill out our squad a bit more. But in general, I'm still enjoying it. It's very much a raid log experience for me at the moment, because I just have so much else going on. But if I wasn't raid logging, I would be working on alts for sure, because there's a lot of really fun stuff to do with different classes in the game. I would also be working on maxing out professions a lot more. I'm definitely a little envious of people who've had the time to put together the cash and whatever it is, the coin, the gold, whatever it is, to actually be able to max out their professions in big ways, because there's some really fun stuff you can do with professions. I am glad that a lot of the profession stuff that's linked to the raid, as far as the empowerments of, I'm an enchanter, so I have like a particular buff I can cast on myself that increases my spell power and attack power and that sort of thing. Those are accessible without being max level, which is very nice. So you're actually able to use those before hitting, 300 enchanting, which makes me super happy, because it's very expensive and prohibitive to get to 300 enchanting at the moment. The dust that you need about 200 and something of costs 50 silver a piece, which means you need like 100 gold, if not more, to be able to spend, to be able to just get a nice 30 chunks of levels out of it. So it is pricey, and so that is something that's holding me back for sure. And I would certainly be spending more time in there if I didn't have my life pulling me in so many directions. So this catch-up buff is important. It helps players save their time and be able to actually get in and enjoy the game with their friends faster towards the max level, if that's something they're driving for. They still need better catch-up mechanics on glyphs in general. The actual ability runes that you get for making your class better and getting a lot of those abilities, a lot of them still are a slog to get and are inside older content, and players essentially, if I was trying to level a character right now, 100% I would just spam one zone or dungeon content to be able to actually hit max level as fast as possible, and then do the big loop at max level around to try and get all my runes based off of Wowhead information, which I think is too bad for a season of Discovery, because not only does it pull the player away from actually the discovery element of the game, it also puts the player in a position where they don't feel like they're a complete class until they've gone around and done all of their chores. Just throw a vendor in the game that has phase 1 and phase 2 stuff on it. Like, just why not? Just put a vendor in the game, put phase 1 and phase 2 stuff on it. If people want to do that option, they can do that option. If people want to find them and do the quest chain and do the thing, they can choose to do that.
Yeah, I don't really think the leveling is the point, which is where I sort of fell off of SOD right away. I should get back in there and level up now that, the buff is up to 150% in the range I'm in. I left off at like level 27. I had a great time with it in phase 1, and it's just like, I don't want to get back on that level grind again, and then phase 2 was so short. I was like, I am so glad I didn't do this, because I just can't keep up with it. It's a bummer, because I think a lot of the stuff they're doing is cool. The design is really cool, but it's just the leveling isn't the point and shouldn't be the point. And so, I mean, at least right now, if you've been out of it for a while like me, or if you haven't played it at all, you can zoom up to 40, and then you can still level up twice as fast above 40. So, I mean, I'm glad they've done stuff like that. It's just, with the amount of WoW I have to play at this point, like they lost me at a time where I had time to invest in it, and I just didn't want to.
Right.
And now that it's more attractive to come back, there's other stuff that is, dominating my playtime. So. I don't know. I guess what will be interesting will be to see, once phase 4 is out and level cap is 60, like, where do they continue to go with SOD? And that, that's the thing I've been waiting for, to go, okay, it's time for me to actually level this character all the way up and kind of start working on it again. Because right now it's like, well, if the rug's going to get pulled out from under me every 6 to 8 weeks, I don't really need to do that. So I'm going to play something else.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today, I'd like to give a special shout out to Alianas, Arajian, James, Kapawi, Max, Pinky, Shorel, and Rager. Thank you so much for everything you give, as well as all of our other patrons. We appreciate you. Thank you. You help us pay the bills and keep the lights on for the show. And all the funds that we raise through that goes back in towards supporting the show and supporting the content that we create. So thank you so much. If you're looking for our Patreon, you can find it over at patreon.com/thestartingzone, where it has been up for, 4 years now? Is it 4 years is where we're at?
No, longer than that.
No, it's like 7. It's like 7 years now.
It's going to be 7 years in August.
Goodness. Yeah.
So it's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
Thank you all, patrons, past and present, for the support over those nearly 7 years. Yeah, it means a lot. It does help us keep the show in production. It helps keep the archives online and everything like that. So it means a lot. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. So thank you so much for chipping in and helping us make the show happen.
Yeah, another big shout out as well to our reviewers. If you folks have enjoyed this show, consider heading on over to your iTunes, your Apple Podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review. They really help out our show, and we love reading them here live. This one comes in from Pan's Folly in USA, entitled, "So much information, great help. Spencer and Jason have a great deal of knowledge about World of Warcraft. I find their understanding of the game, playing through the mechanics, and deep knowledge of events has made my game play easier, and I understand more as I am playing it. Keep up the great podcast, gentlemen. Great job. Thank you so much, Pan's Folly, for putting the effort into leaving an iTunes review. They are a little bit, out of your way to sort of be able to leave and do, but they really help us out, boost us up those charts so more people find the show. And we love reading them here. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time. We appreciate the review, and thank you for the kind words. Glad we could help you out. I mean, that's one of our mission statements with the show, right? That's what we want to do, is make the game accessible, make you understand, like, okay, here's things to do that are worth your time when you get in there. And I think, these days, maybe more than ever, we need stuff like that with the state of late Dragonflight, with the amount of stuff that the game kind of throws at you. So, that's something that we want to do around here. So thank you. I'm glad it's working out for you and that you're benefiting from it. Great to hear. And thanks for writing in.
Yeah. That's going to wrap up episode 631 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for The Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter And if you want to join our Discord, you can do that at thestartingzone.com/Discord. We can hop in all the conversation around the community there. If you want to get your hands on some TSE gear, some swag, you can get yourself some shirts or mugs or stickers over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/thestartingzone. And you can get yourself some stuff over there. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
The best place to find me is always over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald. You can also find me on Blue Sky over at J Lucas. I haven't really been posting over there, but I do have an account and I do read it. So come say hi over there if you're on Blue Sky. You can check out the stream over at twitch.tv/Shieldwald. I didn't stream last week just because I didn't feel like it. So I don't know. Maybe I will this week. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But I'm having a blast with Season 4. I just don't know. Stream schedule is kind of up in the air. But normally it would be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Sunday, 7:30 Eastern for raid stuff. So check it out. I'll tweet it out. I'll post it to Discord if I'm going to go live. And maybe I'll do like some extra stuff this week around MOP, like maybe just level up and chill for a while. That would be cool. You also find the YouTube channel over at youtube.com/Shieldwall. It's pretty dormant, but it does exist. I was trying to multi-stream to it for a while there. Then my ISP really didn't like me. They seem to be decently happy with me at this point, so I should try it again sometime. So check that out.
Trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey. You can find me over on Blue Sky at SpencerHD, as well as twitch.tv/SpencerHD and youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for myself and Jason, we want to say thanks for listening and jobs done.